Bandwidth for this podcast is brought to you by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
Welcome to Mac Break Studio. I'm your host, Brian Gary. And today in the house, we've got Steve Martin. Hey, Steve.
Hey.
You're going to show us something cool with QuickTime, but now with the advent of Snow Leopard, we've got QuickTime X, we got QuickTime Player. So which QuickTime are you going to be talking about today?
Well, we're going to talk about, it's not so much about QuickTime as
But I want it to be. I want it to be about QuickTime.
You and your geeky QuickTime fixations. But all right, since you brought it up, yes, there's actually two versions of QuickTime in Snow Leopard. If you haven't figured it out yet, you may have opened the what's called the QuickTime 10, or what I refer to as QuickTime X.
And that's the default player if you're in Snow Leopard,
That's right.
correct?
It actually sounds much sexier than QuickTime 10. You say QuickTime X, right?
Well, you're always, you're cutting edge, man.
So notice I've got this movie open in QuickTime X or QuickTime 10, and there it is. You got the standard Apple player. But the problem is that it's missing a lot of tools that producers and editors really want within the player to be able to get into the guts and the inner workings of QuickTime to make some changes to the movie.
The old Command J, right?
Yeah, the old Command J. Where do I go to pull out, extract a track or whatever? It's not very useful. So what people need to do is go into their Snow Leopard install disks, and there's a folder. There's like forget what it is. It's a utility install. You can actually install the 7.5 version of QuickTime, and it's actually going to be on your system, and then you could use the pro version, and it'll have all those features there.
And it becomes a utility then. It goes in your utilities folder. But it is, as Steve said, something you have to actually go and install.
That's right. So if you look at my dock, I actually have two versions of there's QuickTime X, there's QuickTime Player 7.
Okay.
See? All right. So that said, let's go back into Final Cut, and we could see how QuickTime 7 makes a huge difference in the field when you've actually made a mistake and you need to rectify something.
Right, because I mean that was a kind of quick and dirty editor, not just like you were saying, editing tracks, but you could also go in and trim out parts.
You can get in the inner bowels of QuickTime to get stuff done.
Right, like every now and then there'd be some errant frame, and you could just go in and do that.
Yeah, exactly.
X, and boom, and it's gone.
Well, to make this short and sweet, here's a timeline. It's a little short timeline I have. Notice I have chapter markers already in there.
Right.
And let's say for whatever reason you didn't tag the chapter markers. A lot of times, when you bring up the edit marker window, you have to click the add chapter marker. And a lot of times you forget to do that. Right. And if you're working with DVD Studio Pro or QuickTime, whatever, those chapter markers will then not export with your movie. So that may be one. The other thing is you just forget to export them when you're going to the file menu. So if you go File, Export, QuickTime Movie, you may have forgotten to say this pop-up. It says none there.
Right, because that's the default.
That's the default.
Yeah.
You might want to. You definitely want to choose all markers. But just say for whatever reason, I've chosen either to not tag the chapters or
forgot to export.
Yeah, exactly. So I've exported this out. It took like 3 hours to render. Right?
Yeah, because you're on your field, you're on your MacBook, and you're doing an H.264 render, and it took a long time.
Yeah, and that's like, oh no, I forgot the chapter markers. So what does one do?
Render the whole thing out again.
Again with the chapter markers.
Right.
Wrong.
Oh.
Okay. So this is what we do. With QuickTime 7, you can fix it after the fact using the inner workings of QuickTime.
But I can't do it with QuickTime
X. 10. That's right.
Okay.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is go File, and this time I'm going to export QuickTime. Here's a workaround. File, QuickTime, Export QuickTime Movie. And this time, what you want to do is instead of exporting out the entire audio and video tracks, go ahead and just choose audio only. Okay. And this time under markers, be sure to choose your marker type. I'm just going to go ahead and do the blanket all markers.
Right.
Okay. And I'm going to name this file drop zone markers so I can delineate it from the one that I exported that didn't have the markers.
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to just save that on my desktop. Make sure you have make movies self-contained checked, and we'll click save.
So this is going to be really fast because it's just the audio.
It just happened. You blinked and it happened.
Wow.
Well, it's a short sequence too. So.
But even if it were long, I mean, even an hour-long sequence, all it's got to do is write out an AIFF file into the container.
So what you're going to want to do is I'm going to actually drag. There's my marker movie. I'm just going to drag this on top of the QuickTime Player 7 icon, right? And there it is. Okay. And look at this. Look, there's the chapter markers.
Right.
But they're tracking with the audio stream. Now, well, obviously we didn't export the video. So what we're going to do is.
But the time code's the same, so everything's there.
Right. So, but all we need to do now is press Command J, bring this up. Notice you can see it's soundtrack, timecode track. We don't really need the soundtrack or the timecode track. We can actually delete these. So I'm going to Command click on those and just delete them.
Okay.
Why would I want to delete them? Well, if I was on the same system, I would. But if I needed to email the text track. You can. It's much smaller file.
Yes, because you're not sending the uncompressed PCM audio along with it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So basically, I just have the chapter track as a text track in this little movie here. So what I'm going to do is Command-A, select all, Command-C, copy.
Okay.
So now I'm going to take the movie that doesn't have the chapter markers. I'm going to open up in QuickTime 7, right? Make sure the playhead is at the very beginning of the movie, as you can
And that's critical.
Very critical.
Yeah, because it's not going to say, "Oh, wait, you wanted." That's not going to match it up with time code.
Correct.
It's wherever you have that playhead. Okay.
Yeah. So the playhead's at the beginning, right? And I'm going to go up here to the Edit menu and choose Add to Movie. That's all you have to do. Option Command V. And it puts it in there, and you go, "Well, where's the chapter marker?" Well, you got to go back into the inner workings of QuickTime by pressing Command J, and you'll notice there is that text track. Okay.
Okay.
Now what we need to do is assign that text track to the track we want the chapter markers referencing. You can choose either the soundtrack or the picture track.
Right.
In this case, I'm going to choose a soundtrack. And under the Other Settings tab, under Chapters, you just choose the text track.
Ah.
And I'm going to close this. And I want you to
And
see
there
this.
it is.
And then look at now in QuickTime 7, there's your chapter markers right there. You can just, there's a clear mountain jump. Pretty in. And we go check the other one. Let's check the tower jump.
Right. And now you've got to save this, correct?
You've got to save it, absolutely.
Now, can you just save, or do you have to do a save as?
That's a really good question. You don't want to do a save, because if you do, and then you move that movie to another computer, it really is looking at two separate movies. It wants two separate movies.
So it's almost become a reference movie then.
It is a reference movie.
Okay.
So
It is,
really,
not almost.
See it? It's a really good question. So what you want to do is File, Save As.
Right.
Oops, I didn't do that right. Do it again. File, Save As.
Okay.
And then you'll save as a self-contained movie to wherever you want.
Rebake it.
It rebakes it, and it bakes the chapter marker into it, and then you can move that movie around.
Right.
And that's what you'd want to do.
Now, if I were to open this new baked-in movie up in QuickTime 10, those chapter markers would also
Yes,
appear.
in fact, let's do it really quick.
Okay.
I'm going to just save that. Won't take that long. Now you can see here it's flattening the movie. In other words, it's making one movie out of the entire thing.
Right.
Now what I'm going to do is open this up in QuickTime X. And we know this has chapter movies because we now have a new icon in the player.
Oh, okay.
We click that, there's the chapter markers right there.
Oh,
Go
very
there,
cool.
there's the chapter markers.
Very nice. Well, Steve, that's a really cool tip, and that's kind of more of an intermediate tip. Where can we find both beginner, intermediate, and advanced tips that are like this?
Well, we have a great product called Final Cut Pro Core Training that covers all of the core elements of working in Final Cut Pro. We have some advanced tutorials on Ripple Training, and we're coming out with a complete post-production assistant editor tutorial in the next month or so.
Very nice. Again, that's rippletraining.com. Steve, thank you for coming in, and thank you for watching Mac Break Studio. I'm your host, Brian Gary.